Hey, good evening, everybody. Dr. Joe's in the house on this crazy cold Wednesday evening. I hope you're fine wherever you are. And let me see if I can get the folks down on Instagram online. And I think they should be on now. Okie dokie. Well, welcome. It's been this weather's ridiculous. And in fact, this time last week, I was in San Juan in 85-degree weather. I went on a cruise for a couple of weeks and had a great time. And I got stuck in San Juan. I went to the Caribbean. I went to 5 islands. I went to Antigua, St. Kitts, Barbados, St. Vincent, and St. Martin. There you go. And so great time. And loved the weather. But unfortunately, I got stuck in San Juan because all the flights from San Juan to DC was snowed in. So I was there for extra 4 days and came back last Wednesday midnight. So I'm back in town. I hope you're doing well wherever you are. So on another great session, we're going to talk about transferring tenants. When the tenant leaves, when you have a turnover on Section 8. So that's the focus of today. And it's really transfer-proof your Section 8 portfolio. Transfer-proof your Section 8 portfolio. As always, if you've got some questions, please point to the chat box. I'll get to them about 15, 20 minutes from now. Any question on real estate, deals that you're buying, financing, tenant issues, financing issues, whatever it is, put them in the chat box and I'll try and get to them about 15, 20 minutes from now. And if you want to book a one-on-one, where we can do a deep dive on whatever subject problems that you have, by all means, you can go to my website, www.joeasamoah.com, www.joeasamoah.com, and you can book a one-on-one session. Now, for those folks who are in the Washington, D.C. area, I will be having a live event. I haven't done one for a little while. And Saturday, February the 21st, 2026. Saturday, February 2020. February the 21st. And save the date. I'll give you more information probably next week. But essentially, one of my clients, Johnny, has now almost finished his property here in Washington, D.C. And it was a 3 bedrooms, 2 bath. He's turning it into a 6 bedroom, 3.5 bath. And we should be wrapping up the rehab probably next week. And then we'll transition to the finding a tenant, Section 8 tenant for this property. It's a beautiful property. I think you'll really enjoy coming over. And so it's going to be a good chance to network, meet other like-minded people. So if you're in the Washington, D.C. area, if you can come on down, please save the date, Saturday, February 21st, 2026. I haven't done these for a little while, so I'm looking forward to, touching base with everybody, meeting everyone in person. And then on the 24th, I'm going to Ghana. I'll be going to Ghana for 3 weeks. So looking forward to getting out of this crazy cold weather and going off to Ghana, meet my mom, spend some time with her, meet my brother, my sisters, and just chill out and relax. As they say, get some R&R. So that's my plans for the next few weeks. So anyway, today we're going to talk about transfer-proof your Section 8 portfolio. Well, the question is, how many months of rent could you lose from one tenant transfer, one tenant turnover, and would your portfolio survive it? Essentially, tenant turnovers are very, very expensive, as I've said before, but most residential real estate investors underestimate the financial and operational impact of Section 8 tenant turnovers, whether it be Section 8 tenants, until they experience it firsthand. It's kind of theoretical on a spreadsheet. When you get a loan, you got to put some 5% or so for vacancies. But it's really when someone actually leaves, that's when it really comes down to the real world. It's very expensive. You have no money coming in. You got to clean the house. You got to paint the house. You got to go search for a new tenant. You got to screen the tenant. You got to go through the Section 8 process again. Paperwork. It's a very, very long-winded, very boring, very expensive process. So you want to kind of minimize that as much as possible. But the reality is that a tenant relocation, when they leave your place, some people, it can feel out of control, because you have paused payments, you're not getting paid from Section 8. You may fail inspections. There are administrative delays with the Section 8 process, and all those expenses fall on you, the landlord. So for investors who depend on predictable cash flow, these disruptions can really destabilize not just for one property, but even an entire portfolio. So what separates investors who remain profitable from those who struggle is not really that tenant transfers happen. They will happen, but how prepared you are when they do. Many landlords assume transfers are rare events. People leave are rare. No. And they believe that even the housing authority will quote unquote handle it. That doesn't happen. In reality, transfers are increasingly common and require active landlord involvement to avoid income gaps and costly mistakes. So that's what we're going to focus on today. So really is transfer proofing your Section 8 portfolio and building systems that function under pressure. So it means understanding the rules before they matter, anticipating delays before they occur, and making informed decisions rather than reactive ones. So that's really investors who master this. I think in reality, they gain confidence, they reduce stress, and they protect their long-term performance. Me, myself, I focus on making sure my tenants are happy so they don't leave. And so I don't have as many turnovers as most other people. I'm averaging right now about 7.5 years between each tenant. And my longest tenant, as you know, is 29 years. So this live stream today, it draws on the real world experiences, myself, the wins, the setbacks, and the painful lessons to show you how tenant transfers can either weaken or strengthen your portfolio, depending on how well you manage them. So as usual, I've broken the session into 6 parts, and 1 through 6. I'll be going through each one systematically, and let's get down to it. So let's get down to number 1, part 1, which is accepting tenant transfers as a business reality. Accepting tenant transfers as a business reality. People will leave, tenants will leave your house. It doesn't matter. It's just the way it is. So the question is, why do investors lose money when they treat tenant transfers as surprises instead of expectations? So why do investors lose money when they treat tenant transfers as surprises instead of expectations? So, well, tenant transfers are no longer exceptions. They do happen within the Section 8 program. They are structural realities. It is what it is. Families grow, household needs changes, safety concerns arise, and employment opportunities shift. So your tenant will leave for various reasons. Family size. They may have either an increase or a decrease in the family size, which will affect their voucher size. The household needs change. They may get tired of the location, tired of the landlord, tired of the neighborhood, and they want to change. Maybe the neighborhood's gone downhill, and there's safety issues that they now have to deal with. And also, people do get transferred because of employment. So housing authorities increasingly do approve transfers when tenants meet program criteria, regardless of what you think and landlord preferences. There's really not a whole lot you can do if a tenant says, I want to leave. You can't force them to stay. You can't force them to pay you if they're not going to be there. So unless you're under a lease. So it's the reality. So investors who cling to outdated assumptions about long-term tenants, not moving, often find themselves unprepared. So many unsuccessful investors mentally categorize transfers as quote unquote bad luck rather than part of the business model. These things happen. It's not your luck. It's not bad luck. It's just the way it is. So this mindset leads to emotional reactions. Oh no, the sky is falling. Rush decisions. I need to get somebody in here before my next mortgage payment, and missed steps. They rush and they may get somebody in there just to get a body in the house, and they end up getting the wrong person, and now their problems continue. So when a tenant announces a move, panic replaces planning. Mistakes compound quickly. So the cost is usually measured in quote unquote delayed rent and unnecessary frustration. However, successful investors, hopefully like you and I, we approach transfers slightly different. We assume and we expect that people will leave, and we plan for it financially, and we treat it as an operational process rather than a disruption. So this acceptance allows us and you, hopefully, to respond calmly, follow established procedures, and protect incomes even during transition periods. So transfers don't destabilize portfolios with successful landlords. Lack of preparation does. Again, transfers don't destabilize your portfolio. It's the lack of preparation that can. So investors who normalize tenant movement build resilience into their business and reduce the shocks when the changes occur. Okay. So that's number one, which is accepting tenant transfers as a business reality. Now let's go to number two, which is understanding cash flow risks during transfers. Understanding cash flow risks during transfers. I suppose the question is, why does rent stop flowing during transfers? And how do prepared investors stay solvent anyway? Why does rent stop flowing? I think that's pretty obvious, because no one's there. And how do you prepare, to remain solvent during that period of time? Well, the most painful lesson investors learn during the tenant transfer is how quickly cash flow can pause. Many landlords assume that the subsidy payments will continue uninterrupted, only to discover that payment stops until inspections, approvals, and documentations are complete. There's a whole process for Section 8. Just because you found somebody doesn't mean they're going to move in the next day. There's a whole set of things, documentation, paperwork you got to submit to the housing authority. They have to do inspections. They have to make sure everything's okay, make sure that you are, in fact, the owner of the property. They have your tax information. They have your bank account. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you have to provide them before you get paid. So these pauses are procedural, not personal. It's just the way it is. But they can still be very devastating, especially if you're not used to some these kind of things. So unprepared investors often lack clarity around payment sequencing. They don't know when rent stops, what triggers resumptions, and how long delays typically last. So without reserves or contingency plans, even short interruptions create financial strains and force landlords into quote unquote reactive decisions. Yeah. It's pretty painful when you don't have any money. You got someone in your house, you still wait for the paperwork, the bureaucracy of the housing authority to kind of complete. So seasoned investors, hopefully like you and I, anticipate cash flow disruptions. We know this is just how it works, and we plan accordingly. We maintain reserves, have some money sitting aside, specifically for transfer periods, and understand that stability comes from preparation and not just quote unquote hope or crossing your fingers, hope for the best. Instead of scrambling, we execute a known process and absorb the temporary gap without jeopardizing the entire portfolio. So cash flow resilience is not just about avoiding interruptions, it's about surviving them without stress or long-term damage. We're more resilient, we can survive these disruptions in income, in cash flow. That's number two. So number two again is understanding cash flow risks during transfers. Let's go to number three, which is mastering transfer paperwork and documentation. If you're dealing with Section 8, there's paperwork and there's documentation, and you have to master those things in order to get paid. So the question is, how does one missing document delay rents for weeks? It can, sure does. Paperwork is the silent deal breaker in most failed transfers. Housing authorities require precise documentation submitted in the correct format and in the correct order. Missing or incomplete paperwork can stall the entire process without warning. I double check, triple check, quadruple check all my paperwork before I submit to make sure everything is there, make sure there's nothing missing, and I'm hoping they don't kick it back because there's something not there. So many investors underestimate how unforgiving this step can be. Yes, it can be. If you miss something, a little document, they can kick it back to you and you can go back to square one again. So struggling landlords rely on verbal guidance, outdated forms, or incomplete checklists. They submit documents late or incorrectly. They don't really, make sure everything's there and assume that the issue will be flagged or resolved quickly. No, in reality, errors often go unnoticed until the landlord follows up. They're not going to follow up with you. You'll probably, after 2 or 3 weeks, nothing happening, you may say, what's going on, and contact the housing authority. And then they'll tell you, well, you forgot this or you're missing that. And so you could have lost some weeks there. And as a result of that, your rent is also going to be late. Okay. So they use, successful investors like you and I, hopefully, we systemize the documentation. We use standardized checklists. We keep digital templates and we verify submission receipts. We transfer, our transfers anyway, move faster because the paperwork is complete, professional, and timely. So paperwork discipline is one of the clearest indicators of investor maturity in the Section 8 space. There's a lot of paperwork that you have to provide to the housing authority, and it's in your interest to know what they want and making sure that you have it available so you can send it to them when necessary. Okay, we're kind of halfway through. So again, as usual, if you got any questions, anything to do real estate, put it in the chat box. I'll get to you guys in about 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes. It could be anything to do with financing, tenants, landlording, rehabbing, doesn't matter. You can leverage on my 35 years worth of experience to them. Likewise, if you want to book a one-on-one, you can always go to my website, www.joeasimo.com, www.joeasimo.com, and you can schedule a one-on-one with me. And again, I save the date for Saturday, February the 21st. I'm going to do a live event in Washington, D.C., Northwest Washington, D.C., in fact, Johnny's house, beautiful house in the Brightwood neighborhood of Northwest D.C. He turned this 3-bedroom, 2-bath into a 6-bedroom, 3.5-bath. Beautiful house. The chance for us to network. I haven't met many of you for a little while. Let's get out of the hibernation mode. Let's thaw our way out of this snow and let's connect, network, and meet like-minded people. So again, save the date, Saturday 21st. I'll give you more information next week. Okay, moving right along. So number 4, 4 of 6, inspections as a transfer bottleneck. Inspections as a transfer bottleneck. I suppose the question is, why do inspections derail, transfers, even when properties are well maintained? The inspections is a whole nother subject in itself. And they call it Housing Quality Standard, HQS inspections, which you have to go through if you want to have a tenant move into your property. It's a policy at the HUD level. So inspections are often the longest and can be the most frustrating bottleneck during tenant transfers. Even high quality properties can fail due to minor deficiencies that investors assume are acceptable. I mean, a door not closing properly, a lock that's not locking properly, a window that doesn't close properly, a handrail that's loose, a plumbing leak. All these things can cause you to fail the inspection. So even high quality properties can fail due to minor deficiencies that, investors like you and I may think it's okay. So the failed inspection resets the timeline and can delay your payments, often for preventable reasons. There's really no excuse, to not understand what it is that the inspectors are looking for beforehand. So that way you can check it for yourself and therefore hopefully decrease or reduce or minimize the chances of a failed inspection. So unsuccessful investors, they treat inspections passively, assuming prior approvals guarantee future success. Oh, well, the house passed before. Well, if it passed before, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to pass now. They fail to prepare the properties specifically for transfer inspections, and they underestimate the strictness of enforcement during relocations. Experienced investors, we pre-inspect before official inspections occur. We go through the house with a fine-tooth comb, I suppose it is, yeah. Before the inspector comes. And so we know what inspection criteria they're going to be using, and we try to address any issues proactively and document repairs thoroughly. So as a result, inspections become confirmations rather than obstacles. Inspections reward preparation and not intentions. Again, inspections reward preparation. Do your homework beforehand and not your intention. Well, I thought the house was nice. This is a nice house. That doesn't really matter. Okay, number 5. And so again, number 4 was inspections as a transfer bottleneck. And number 5 is communicating effectively with housing authorities. Yes, that's a good one. If communicating effectively with your local housing authority, your PHA, as again, public housing authority. So the question is, are you managing the transfer or waiting for someone else to? Are you waiting for them to manage it, or are you going to be more proactive and sort of take charge of the process? Well, communications breakdowns compound every transfer problem. Housing authorities manage heavy caseloads. They've got hundreds, thousands of other people that they're dealing with, and unclear or inconsistent communication slow progress. Investors who rely on assumptions or informal conversations often wait weeks, for updates that never come. Unsuccessful landlords communicate reactively and consistently. We fought, unsuccessful landlords, they follow sort of emotional, sporadical, verbally, that's how they communicate with a housing authority. Silence is often mistaken as progress, and delays obviously multiply. Just because you haven't heard from them doesn't mean everything's going okay. You need to check in through the process. Successful landlords, on the other hand, we communicate professionally, consistently, and in writing. We track correspondence, follow up periodically, and build rapport with all the caseworkers and all the key stakeholders in the process. So clear communications accelerates action and reduces misunderstandings. Strong communications turns a bureaucracy into a process. So that's number 5, communicating effectively with housing authorities. And finally, number 6, turning transfers into strategic advantages. I suppose the question is what if tenant transfers could actually improve your portfolio instead of weakening it? So what if tenant transfers can actually improve your portfolio instead of weakening it? So it could be some, upside to people leaving. Well, most investors, we view transfers as losses. There's no upside, it's all downside. Experienced investors, on the other hand, we view this or can view this as an opportunity. It creates openings for rent adjustment. You can maybe get a rent increase. Tenant alignment, maybe you got rid of bad tenants and now gives you a chance to get some good tenants. And also it gives you a chance to improve your operational processes when handled strategically. So there are some upsides to these things. Again, it's a chance for you to increase your rents. It's a chance to get better tenants, and it's also to streamline your processes. So investors who focus on optimization. By understanding program transfers and market conditions, landlords can use transfer periods to reassess rent levels improve systems, and strengthen long-term performance. So transfers become stress tests that reveal weaknesses and opportunities in your portfolio. So investors who learn from each experience emerge stronger and more disciplined. So the opportunity favors those who are prepared. And that's pretty much it. So let me just kind of wrap this up in conclusion. Let's have a look. In conclusion, yes. Building a transfer resilient portfolio is the goal. So tenant transfers are not a flaw in the Section 8 program. They can, they are, it can be a feature of today's housing landscape. It's just the way it is. Investors who resist this reality experience recurring frustrations and financial instability. Those who accept it as just the way of doing business and prepare accordingly, we can build portfolios that perform under pressure. Transfer proofing your Section 8 portfolio is about control over your cash flow, control over the timelines, control over communications, and control over the outcomes. It replaces panic with process and uncertainty with confidence. Over time, these systems compound into stability, scalability, and peace of mind, which is all what we want, peace of mind. So the most successful investors are not the ones who avoid challenges, but those who design portfolios capable of absorbing these challenges. So tenant transfers test discipline, preparation, and professionalism. Investors who pass that test consistently separate themselves from the pack. Mastery here is not optional for long-term success. It is foundational. Mastery is not optional. It's foundational. People will move. You will have tenant transfers. So it's not optional. You're going to have to deal with it. And it's important that we master this. So that's it for today in terms of the education part. Hopefully that was helpful. So again, we're going to go to the Q&A. So if you've got some questions, please put them in the chat box. And, and anything to do with real estate. And likewise, if you want to shoot me an email, if you want to communicate with me, you can shoot me an email by, shoot me an email at joe@joesmo.com, joe@joesmo.com. And if you want to book a one-on-one with me, just go to my website, www.joesmo.com, www.joesmo.com. And, you could do a one-on-one. So that's it for today's education. Let's get down to some of the questions and see what questions we have here. Let's have a look. Okay. Dow 2. Hey, greetings from Phoenix, Dr. Joe. Hopefully the weather in DC is allowing for movement. Yeah, the weather here is lousy. It's terrible. It's cold. It's not as bad. I mean, for the last couple of days, it's been a little bit better. But it's a lot colder than it was in San Juan, I'll tell you that. So anyway, yeah, that's a whole nother discussion. Well, I wish I was in Phoenix. I'm sure the weather in Phoenix is pretty good Dow too. So I think it was 33 degrees today here in the DC area. Welcome back, Dow. Welcome. I'm good. Welcome back. I am in New York City. I'm sure this is Manish. Okay, you're in New York City. Okay, I hope you're doing well in New York. And Manish is a good guy. He's the king of short-term rentals, and he's buying up the whole world. One day I'll be like him, huh? Okay. So that too. EDAO. I had a new choice voucher program tenant. Okay, housing choice voucher tenant. Move into another one of my houses on 2/1/26. Okay. This is my third housing choice voucher program. 3 currently active. Okay, cool. Congratulations. So it looks like you're getting 3. You've got 3 properties, and you got 3 Section 8 voucher holders. And the most recent one moved in this month, the 1st of February. Congratulations, EDAO 23005. I don't know what your name is, but if you can give me your name, I'll be more than happy to give more kudos to you. I mean, this is why I like people taking action. People, it's not easy, but they want it to happen. Financial independence is not gained by reading or watching YouTube. It's gained by taking action. And at the end of the day, that's where we want to do. And hopefully, if you want to come and see somebody taking the action, then come to us, join us on Saturday 21st in Washington, D.C. Okay, so Manish, Saturday, February 2020. Is that I don't know if that's a smiley face or is a sad face. Well, hopefully you can make it. I haven't seen you in a little while. We can catch up, Manish. I want to say a sincere thank you to Dr. Joe for the convincing me to get my houses involved in this housing Section 8. Okay, in the housing choice voucher program. Yeah, oh yeah, okay. Well, that's good. I'm happy I was able to help you on that path. I think the Section 8 program is the greatest program I ever created. I mean, it's allowed me to survive 35 years of being a landlord. There's just no way I would have survived if I had market renters. I've gone through 6 or 7 cycles. People lose their jobs. People have their income disrupted. And, you know, in those situations, I may not have got my rent, but at least I get the bulk of the rent from the housing authority. I think it's the greatest program. And those people who are on the fence, you definitely want to consider it. Okay, this is Nestor Can. Hey, Dr. Joe, how was your vacation? Have you ever been to Barbados? That's where I'm from. Yes, we went to, let's have a look, went to, start off in San Juan, which is in Puerto Rico. Had a good time there. I went to a festival, San Sebastian Festival there. Went to the old town and, you know, hanging out there. Then went to St. Kitts and then went to St. Vincent and the Grenadines and then went to Antigua and then went to Barbados. I saw, what's that lady's name? Rihanna. She's from Barbados. So I went to her birthplace where she used to live. And she's doing a lot for the island, apparently. And she's done well for herself. And also, I think she's putting some money back to her community in Barbados. So went to Barbados and then went to St. Martin and then went back to San Juan in Puerto Rico. It was a great vacation. 7 nights, 8 days. Had fun until I got back on Saturday when I couldn't get back to DC because I was stuck because of the weather over there. Anyway, looking forward to doing that again. Maybe going. I went on Virgin cruises this time around. First time being with Virgin. It's an all adult cruise line. I had a good time. A lot of fun there. I tell you. And look forward to another one. Maybe I'll try and do another cruise this year before the end of the year. Okay, Nestor Can. Here is the update on my situation. The Section 8 office in my area, St. Louis, said they will no longer post landlord vacancies on their site. I have to do it myself. Okay. Okay, well, if they're not going to do it, then it is your responsibility at the end of the day. So what I would suggest is, find out where, tenants where they're steering tenants to look for properties in your area. Is it, it's things like Zillow? Is it, Craigslist? Is it Facebook Live, Facebook Marketplace? Sorry, and things like. So you want to find out the platforms where the housing authority in St. Louis or anywhere is telling their, or affordable housing, telling their tenants to go look, and then you need to advertise there, and you need to be really aggressive. We're in the winter, so there aren't as many people looking as they typically are in the spring. But there are people looking. There's a lot more competition now. It's a slowing market. A lot of investors who couldn't sell their homes are now considering renting. And a lot of people are hearing the positive side of Section 8 in terms of guaranteed rents. So there's a lot more investors, considering Section 8 tenants. So there's a lot more competition. So the challenge for you, Nestor Can, is to how do you differentiate your property from your competition? Because you do have competition and you cannot assume that Section 8 tenants will take anything. They will not, at least not the tier 1 tenants that I'm looking for. So you will need an aggressive campaign to find these tenants. And there's lots of things that you can do. I could have a whole session on that. But if you want to spend more time, you can book a one-on-one with me where we can do a deep dive into what I do and how. In fact, I had an Ask Dr. Joe this week with somebody who's having a similar kind of situation here in Washington. They do apartments. I do mainly houses, but they were saying how it's more challenging now to get tenants into apartment buildings. There's a lot of competition. It's not easy, but there's ways. And so book a one-on-one with me, Nesta, if you feel like it, and we can do a deep dive, and I can give you some suggestions on plan of action that you can take. Ho, Charles. Hey, Charles. How you doing, man? I hope Johnny's project is going well. It is. I'll see you there on the 21st. Now for the question. How soon can you start DCHA's re-inspection process within the 2-year cycle? Let's see if you got. What does DCHA look for during this re-inspection? Is it similar to the moving inspection? Okay, got it. So what Charles is saying is that, as part of the program, is that depending on the jurisdiction that you're in, some jurisdictions is every year that they have to come back, housing authority has to come back, the inspectors to come back to make sure that your house meets what they call a housing quality standard, HQS standard. And some jurisdictions is every 2 years. Washington, D.C. is every 2 years. Some places every 1 year. So they typically what will happen is that they'll contact you and say, hey, Mr. Charles, or hey, Mr. Dr. Joe, your property at 123 Main Street is scheduled for an inspection on, I don't know, let's just say April the 1st. They typically give at least a 30-day advance notice. And so now so we're in February. So let's just say April the 1st. So you now know that on April the 1st, there's going to be an inspection at your property. The HQS or the annual inspection is very similar to the move-in inspection. They're going to check the same things for the most part. Check the windows, the plumbing, the electrical, make sure the heating system's working, make sure there's no obvious housing code violation. They check for health and safety type issues. And so they'll do that. What I do is to give a heads up to the tenant beforehand to have them go through the house to make sure the house is okay, and and so on. So what I try to do is to pass the first time round. But if you do fail, they normally give you a list of the repairs that needs to be done, and then they usually give you about 28 to 30 days to fix it, and then they'll come back. Assuming that you fix the problems, then you pass the second time round, and you're good for another 2 years, another year. If you failed on the second time round, that's where it gets ugly. They can stop your payments. You enter what we call abatement, where your payments are stopped until you fix the problem. So you absolutely do not want to fail the second inspection. That's when your income stops, and it stops from the first inspection until you fix it. And you have to now arrange with the housing authority for an inspector to come to your house to check that everything is fixed. If you fail the third time around, I think I've never done that before, but I've heard that that's really bad if you fail again. So I've never done that, so I don't really know, but I know that there's some penalties associated with that. So you'll get a notice from the housing authority saying that there's an inspection scheduled on a certain date. I typically work collaboratively with a tenant to make sure the house passes the inspection. And it's not that bad, really. But they check for the most part the same thing as they did on the initial inspection. So hopefully that helps. What does the... Yeah, so I think I answered your question, Charles. Again, if you've got some questions, please put them in the chat box, and I'll get to them shortly. Let's have a look. Hi, Dr. Joe. Sorry, joined late. What exactly do you mean by transfer? Transfer is when they move from your house to another house, i.e. they're leaving, it's a turnover, or they're leaving somebody else's house and coming into your house. So if they are leaving somebody else's and coming to your house, then obviously you have a vacancy and you're trying to fill it, and you found a tenant and so on. So it's a tenant turnover. That's something that it happens. I know some landlords, they get turnovers every year, transfers every year. I don't. I have a calculated strategy to try to keep my tenants for a long time. So I'm averaging, as I said before, about 7.5 years between transfers or between turnovers. So yeah, turnover is another name for transfers. Transfer in the scheme of Section 8 is that they're transferring their voucher from, let's say, house number A to house number B. They're transferring the voucher from A to B, and to do that, there's a process that you have to go through, or they have to go through, and you have to go through if you are going to accept them as the new prospective tenant. Okay, hopefully that makes sense, Talto. If not, then please, let me know and I'll clarify further. There's definitely a lot more competitive in Phoenix. They're building a lot of build to rent subdivisions out in Phoenix. Yes, there's a lot more competition now, and that's why you can't get away. If you're trying to attract quality tenants, you cannot get away with crappy houses and crappy neighborhoods anymore. You're not going to attract them because there's a lot more competition, a lot more other people with better houses in better neighborhoods, and you have to understand that the way the Section 8 program works is that their rent, the tenant's rent, is based on their income, and it's based on their income. So, whether they live in Beverly Hills or Shoot 'em Dead neighborhood, their portion is the same, as long as it meets fair market rent values. So, if you had a choice between living in an A neighborhood or a war zone, okay, where would you live if your rent's the same? So I know I wouldn't live in a war zone if I paid the same rent as I would in Beverly Hills. I'll try to navigate to, Beverly Hills. So it's common sense, and that's the reality of it. So if you're competing with Beverly Hill type properties, Beverly Hill type neighborhoods, and so if you got a war zone, yes, it's going to be harder. I mean, people still want to live in war zones. It's just that you may not be able to attract a large number of people as you would if the house is in a better area, better condition, and you are a better landlord. So that's something that really comes into play during downturns, which is what we're going through now. And a lot of landlords are going to have a hard time. I've been through this many, many times. And that's the reason why I have the strategy which I do, because even though it's tough times, for the most part, I can get my properties filled. Even though it's a tough times, I usually get multiple rental applications. Even in tough times, I can still be picky on who I rent to. And that has not always been the case. It certainly wasn't the case when I first started, but it's the case for the most part now. And that's the reason why the strategy I do is what I do. And if you want to learn more about that strategy, we're going to have a session on, say, February 21st, where you'll see in real time somebody who's gone through the same process that I go through. In fact, I've been helping them through that, Johnny. Okay. So it sounds like in Phoenix, you're competing against build to rent subdivisions. These are new homes. So the competition is tough, and it's not going to be easy while the market's soft. So typically apartments now compete with condos, and flips homes are now competing with regular homes because investors couldn't sell, market's soft, so they have to rent. So now a house that typically would never be rented because it would be flipped is now part of the rental pool, and your tenants, prospective tenants, I think, will gravitate to them as opposed to the ordinary houses. I came into Section 8 during the downturn. I think you heard the story I have, where I had a house where I used to live at in Washington, and the tenant didn't want to move into my home because it didn't have a jacuzzi. It didn't have hardwood floors and stainless steel appliances. This is a voucher holder. She said my house where I lived in wasn't good enough for her. And I'm saying, what in the world is going on here? The reality is that we're in the times like we are now, which is these top tier tenants have choices. And she said, well, forget you. I'd rather go to another house where it has a jacuzzi and stainless steel appliances and hardwood floors. Yours doesn't, because my rent's the same whether I go there or yours. So that's what I, have experienced many, many times. And so I put these systems in place to to sort of mitigate those things from happening again. Okay. Inspector tried to fail me on an outlet, but he didn't understand initially that the upstairs and downstairs bathroom were on the same GFI. Yeah, that's a good one. Let's have a think. So again, bathrooms, kitchens typically need to have GFIs. If you do have GFIs, you better know how they're wired, because if you trip one and you don't reset it, it could trip other outlets. And so it seems like those other outlets aren't working, when in fact they are working. It's just that they've been tripped. So yeah, that's something that you need to know, or you need to let your tenants know. So that way, when the inspector comes and they find out an outlet's not working, especially GFI, and they can't figure out how to turn it back on again, then you can avoid being failed. It's a good catch. Yeah, I've experienced that quite a bit before. Okay, again, if you got some questions, please put in the chat box. I'm gonna wrap it up in a few minutes. How can I buy my first Section 8 property in DC? How much down payment do you need? Trying to have an understanding. Okay, this is from eWorld 407. It's going to depend on the neighborhood, the price point. So typically, you're not going to find too many houses in DC less than 450, 500,000 in decent areas. So this is houses that need work. And so I'm talking about houses that need work. So so it's that's just how much it costs. So you're going to spend about $400 or $500, $400,000 on the acquisition. Then you got renovations. Typically, I add bedrooms. So I usually add, like what we did in Johnny's case, add 2 or 3 bedrooms, because the rent that you're going to get is based on the number of bedrooms. So the more bedrooms, more rent. As a 3-bedroom, you're negative cash flow. As a 4, you're breaking even. As a 5, you got some cash flow. As a 6, you're getting some decent cash flow. So I like to add bedrooms so I can get more rent. So that's a renovation. So it's going to cost you more unless you buy a house with a large number of bedrooms, which I know Ben, another client of mine, did a couple of months ago. He bought 2 houses that were already 5 bedrooms. So he didn't have to do renovations, but typically I like to do renovations. And so it's going to depend on how much renovation is going to cost. Typically a renovation nowadays they go anywhere from 200,000 to 330,000, depending on the scope of your work. So that's how much it's going to cost to renovate it. And then the question becomes, what's the after repair value after you've done all that? I like to have at least 100K worth of equity in the property minimum after all is said and done. So if I buy something for 500 and put 200 in it, I'm expecting that house is probably worth around $800,000-900,000, and then I'll refinance it, and then hopefully recycle most of my money. So that's the process. So what I would suggest, eWorld, if you want to get into this in DC, you could come to the event on Saturday 21st, where you can see somebody who's actually done this in real time. You can speak to them, you can speak to me, you can network with other like-minded people. And if this is something that you want to pursue, then we can have a deeper dive discussion. Otherwise, you can always book a one-on-one with me. Go to my website, www.joeasamoah.com, and then taking it from there. So that's that one. Let's see if there's anybody in Instagram. RAF, I have a 2-bedroom Section 8 property that's 725 square feet. That always takes longer to rent to my larger properties. Any suggestions? 2-bedroom Section 8 properties. So I don't know if that's an apartment. You said 2 bedrooms. If it's a 2-bedroom apartment or it's a 2-bedroom house, I'm assuming it's probably a 2-bedroom apartment. So they're hard because you're competing with a lot of apartment buildings, a lot of condos. The market is very, very soft right now for apartments. So any suggestions? Yeah, a couple. I would sort of step back and say, how can I differentiate my apartment or my property from my competition? What is it unique about my property? Is it the location that I can sort of highlight? Is it the amenities that's in the property? Another thing is to separate yourself or differentiate yourself by just being a good landlord. A lot of these voucher holders are tired of crappy landlords. So maybe you can highlight the fact that you're a good landlord, and then the marketing, the platforms that you use, the verbiage that you use on your ads, your demeanor, how you sell the property, all those things come into play. But yeah, it's going to be hard with a 725 foot square apartment to rent, because apartments like yours are competing with condos who have a lot of the modern amenities and so on. But I will sort of step back and say, how can I differentiate myself? And therefore, all the marketing and the campaigns should focus on trying to highlight your uniquenesses and how you can, satisfy the needs of these tier one tenants. Hopefully that helps, Raf J. Okay, let's get back down to. Okay, I think we're good. So hopefully today was a good session, and it's tough out there, but tenant transfers are it is what it is. It will happen, and the thing is to put in systems in place, be proactive, not reactive, and you can minimize the losses that other people will incur. So with that said and done, my friends, I'm going to wrap it up, and I'll see you next Wednesday again. Save the date, December the 21st, Saturday. It's probably going to start around 11 o'clock here in Washington, D.C. So if you're in the D.C. area, if you can make it to D.C., please put that in your calendar, and I'll give you more information this time next week. Okay, have a great weekend, and I'll see you, God willing, next Wednesday. Take care. Bye for now.